On December 24th, 1971, Lanza Airlines Flight 508 took off from Lima, the capital of Peru. On board were 86 passengers. The plane was flying over the vast Amazon rainforest, heading toward the city of Pucallpa. For the first half hour, everything felt normal. The crew served breakfast, the pilots talked quietly about their families, and the cabin was filled with a gentle sense of happiness. The next day was Christmas. Everyone was traveling with one simple hope: to reach their loved ones. As the plane began its descent, the mood slowly changed. Dark clouds gathered ahead, thick and heavy. A violent storm rose suddenly in their path. The pilots chose not to turn back. Instead, they continued straight into the storm. Within minutes, darkness swallowed the aircraft. Lightning flashed again and again, and the turbulence became severe. The plane shook so violently that luggage broke free from the overhead compartments, crashing down onto the passengers below. Fear spread through the cabin. For nearly 20 minutes, the chaos did not stop. Then, at an altitude of 21,000 feet, lightning struck the plane's right wing. Fire erupted instantly. Moments later, the right wing tore away, and the left wing began to break apart as well. Just 15 minutes from landing in Pucallpa, at around 10,000 feet, the aircraft started to disintegrate in midair. On radar screens below, the small dot representing the flight suddenly vanished. At first, there was hope it had made an emergency landing. But soon, the truth became unavoidable. The plane had crashed. What followed was the largest search operation in Peru's history. When rescue teams finally reached the crash area, deep in the Amazon rainforest, they found devastation scattered in every direction. Pieces of the aircraft lay torn apart. Passengers' belongings hung from the trees. Suitcases lay open on the ground, and Christmas gifts dangled from branches, like decorations on a broken tree. The search went on for days. No survivors were found. Everyone believed the same thing. After falling from such a height, survival seemed impossible. But the truth was very different. Unknown to the world, one passenger was still alive. Miles away from any human settlement, deep within the Amazon jungle, a 17-year-old girl lay on the forest floor. Her name was Julianne Kopke. Her survival was nothing short of a miracle. But now she faced a terrifying reality. She was alone, injured and surrounded by endless jungle. No one was coming to find her. The rescue teams had already ended the search. Her family and the rest of the world believed she was dead. Julianne had been traveling with her mother, Maria. They were heading to a biological research station called Panguana, deep in the Amazon. Her parents were zoologists who had built the station themselves, and the plan was for the family to reunite there and celebrate Christmas together. Originally, Julianne was supposed to travel earlier, but because of her school prom and graduation party, she had to take a later flight. During the busy Christmas season, most reliable airlines were already fully booked. Lanza Airlines was their only remaining option. Her father warned them again and again about the airline's poor safety record, but they had no alternative. Her mother booked the tickets, and together, they boarded the plane. At the time, Lanza Airlines was infamous. People joked about it, saying the planes fell belly first from the sky. Several Lanza aircraft had already crashed in the years before this flight. And this plane was their last one, a Lockheed L-188 Electra turboprop built to fly over deserts. Its rigid wings were tightly attached to the body, making it dangerously vulnerable in violent storms. This plane was never built to endure severe turbulence. Years earlier, it had already been retired from service in the United States. None of the passengers knew this aircraft was never meant to cross mountains. And yet, on this flight, it was flying directly over the Andes. When lightning struck, everything fell apart. Julianne was seated near the back of the plane, in row 19, by the window. The row she sat in, 3 seats together, ripped completely free from the aircraft. Because her seatbelt was fastened, she remained strapped to her seat as it fell from 10,000 feet. What happened next defies belief. Julianne and her seat spun violently through the air. The roar of the storm was overwhelming. Passengers screamed all around her, but through it all, the loudest sound she heard was the wind rushing past her ears. The seatbelt pressed so tightly into her body that breathing became almost impossible. Below her, the Amazon rainforest stretched endlessly. The trees were so dense and tightly packed that, from above, They looked like a solid green carpet. During the fall, Julianne lost consciousness. When she opened her eyes again, she was lying on the forest floor. It was the morning of December 25th, Christmas Day. Rain had poured all night, soaking her clothes and covering her in mud. She had been unconscious for hours. As awareness slowly returned, she tried to stand. Her legs gave out and she collapsed. Again and again, she tried. After several painful attempts, she finally managed to stay upright. Only then did she realize how badly she was injured. Her collarbone was broken. Her knees were deeply bruised. Her right shoulder and left calf throbbed with pain. One eye was swollen completely shut. The other could barely open. Her vision was already weak and her glasses were gone. One sandal was missing. She was also suffering from a concussion. It raises an impossible question. How could anyone survive a fall from such a height? 3 rare factors worked together to save her life. Powerful updrafts beneath the storm pushed air upward, slowing her descent. Her seat spun rapidly as it fell, reducing her speed even further. And the dense canopy of the Amazon, layers of leaves, branches, and vines, softened the impact before she reached the ground. Luck also played its part. The angle of her fall, the direction she faced, and the tree she struck all mattered. Even with everything aligned, her survival was extraordinary. No other passenger from that plane survived. But for Julianne, survival was only the beginning. Alone in the heart of the Amazon, she called out for her mother. There was no answer. The jungle answered instead. Frogs, insects, birds. There was one small comfort. Julianne was not completely unprepared. She was not a city girl. She had spent years living at the Panguana research station with her zoologist parents. She knew which animals were dangerous, which plants to avoid, and how to stay calm when everything seemed lost. She understood something important. Fear would only make things worse. Clear thinking was her only chance. After resting for several hours, she gathered enough strength to move. Her first instinct was to search for her mother and the others. She called out softly, "Where are you, Mom?" There was no reply. From time to time, she could hear helicopters passing overhead, but the forest was too thick. No one could see her. In that moment, Julianne understood the truth. She was alone. Now, there was no one left to save her but herself. Her survival depended on 2 urgent needs, water and food. And from here on, every decision mattered. Julianne depended entirely on her instincts. To survive, she began with water. She collected droplets from leaves, lifting them to her lips and licking them away, one by one, just enough to ease her thirst. Finding food was far harder. Many people imagine the Amazon as a place overflowing with edible plants. But the truth is very different. The jungle is so dense that sunlight barely reaches the ground. Most plants cannot grow there at all. The few fruits that exist grow high above, nearly 20 meters up, on tall palm trees, far too dangerous for her to climb. At first, Julianne noticed mushrooms growing nearby. She stopped herself. They could be poisonous, and she knew better than to take the risk. Later, she came across a box of Italian fruitcakes that had fallen from the plane, but the heavy rain had soaked them completely. They were ruined. Then, a little farther on, she found something else. A small packet of candies, scattered on the forest floor. Only 30 pieces. She understood immediately what that meant. These few sweets might have to keep her alive for days, so she rationed them carefully, allowing herself only a tiny amount each day. She also had one other valuable item, a watch, a gift from her grandmother. It allowed her to keep track of time, something that helped her stay grounded in reality. Soon, she faced a difficult decision. If she wanted to live, she could not stay where she was. She had to keep moving until she found people. But the forest surrounded her in every direction. There were no paths, no landmarks, no sense of where to go. For hours, she wandered near the crash site. Then, faintly, she heard something different, dripping water. She followed the sound and found a small trickle emerging from the soil, weaving its way through the bushes. It was the first real sign of hope. Her father's words came back to her. If you are ever lost in the jungle, follow running water. Small streams lead to rivers. Rivers lead to people. Holding on to that lesson, Julianne chose her path. She followed the water. She was now moving through one of the most dangerous jungles on Earth, a place home to massive alligators, venomous snakes, deadly spiders, and countless unseen predators. She was 17 years old, alone, injured, with no way of knowing if she would ever meet another human being. The only certainty she had was the water in front of her. In theory, following a stream sounds simple. In reality, every step was a struggle. Fallen trees blocked her way, thick undergrowth tore at her skin, slippery rocks sent her stumbling. Often she had to push through bushes just to move forward at all. By the time night arrived, she had made little progress. She checked her watch. It was 6 in the evening. And now her greatest challenge began: surviving the night in the Amazon. As darkness settled in, the jungle became even more dangerous. Any animal could attack without warning. Julianne knew she needed a place where her back would be protected, somewhere near a tree or a large rock. Her father had taught her how to make fire using stones and wood, but the rain had soaked everything. That night, fire was impossible. Exhausted, injured, and overwhelmed, she lay down in the safest spot she could find. Despite everything, sleep eventually claimed her. When morning came, she woke with almost no strength left. But she also knew something else. If she stopped moving, she would not survive. Her glasses were broken and her vision was poor. She could not see far ahead. There were no shortcuts. Only one option remained: keep going. As she moved forward, the jungle revealed one of its most frightening inhabitants: the Goliath bird-eating spider. The largest spider in the world, big enough to prey on small birds. Julianne recognized it immediately. She stayed as far away as possible. For the entire day, Julianne continued moving slowly along the water's edge. She searched constantly, but found nothing new to eat. By the third day, she came across the first clear sign of the crash. A piece of wreckage lay ahead. A turbine from the plane, burned black on one side. From time to time, she could still hear the distant sound of aircraft overhead. Rescue planes were searching the jungle, but from below, there was nothing she could do to make herself seen. As daylight faded into evening, her watch stopped. From that moment on, time lost its meaning. On the fourth day, she noticed vultures circling in the sky. She knew what that meant. They were feeding on death. Moving carefully, she followed them. Soon, she came upon a row of 3 airplane seats. Passengers were still strapped in place. They had fallen headfirst with such force that their heads were buried deep in the ground. Their feet pointed upward toward the sky. It was a horrifying sight. Julianne froze. One of the bodies was a woman. For a brief, terrifying moment, she feared it might be her mother. Slowly, she stepped closer. Using a stick, she examined the bodies from a distance. Then she noticed something small, but important. One of the women had painted nails. Her mother never wore nail polish. It was a painful relief. She looked around the area. Aside from twisted metal and scattered debris, there were no other bodies, no injured passengers, no signs of life. Gathering herself, Julianne turned back toward the river and kept moving. Days passed like this. She found nothing else to eat. Her sense of time completely disappeared. She no longer knew which day it was, or how many hours had passed. Each day blurred into the next. Each night felt exactly the same. Mentally, she was wearing down. But inside her mind, she repeated the same words again and again. Follow the water. Keep following the water. Slowly, the small stream she had been following began to widen. It became a larger flow. Then, at last, it turned into a small river. By now, the hunger was unbearable. Her candies were gone. She thought about eating the inner parts of palm trees, but without a knife, it was impossible. She had no way to catch fish, no way to prepare roots or plants. All she could do was drink from the river. The minerals in the water gave her brief relief, but the hunger always returned. With each passing day, she grew weaker, more discouraged, unsure how much longer her body could survive. On the 6th day, something changed. She heard a bird call in the distance, a sound she recognized immediately. It was the call of the hotskin bird. She knew these birds build their nests near open water. A large river had to be close. For the first time in days, she quickened her pace. Soon, she saw her stream merging into a wider river. Reaching it was not easy. Thick branches and dense shrubs blocked the way. She had to turn back and push through the jungle, slowly working around the barrier. It took hours. Finally, she reached the river. It was nearly 30 feet wide. After days beneath the jungle canopy, Julianne saw open sky for the first time. Light poured down from above. But even here, there was still no sign of people. She had been hearing distant aircraft for days. Now, within half an hour, one plane flew much closer. For the first time, she allowed herself to hope. The plane passed directly overhead. Julianne's heart surged with hope. She waved wildly, shouting with everything she had left. For a moment, she believed she had been seen, but the pilot never noticed her. The aircraft disappeared into the distance. Refusing to move, Julianne stayed by the riverbank. She waited. She hoped another plane would return. None did. The faint sounds of rescue aircraft she had heard for days slowly faded away, until there was nothing. Hours passed, and the truth settled in. The search had been called off. Once again, despair crept in. Her original goal had been simple: reach the river. Now she was there, and still, she was completely alone. Endless jungle stretched in every direction. No voices, no signs of people. No one was coming. Her chances of survival felt impossibly small. Just as she began to lose hope, a memory returned. Her father's words: "Where there is a river, there will be people." Clinging to that thought, Julianne forced herself forward. If she followed the river long enough, she believed it would lead her to humans. With that final thread of hope, she continued. As the days passed, her condition worsened. Flies laid eggs inside the open wounds on her hands. Soon, small maggots began to emerge. Normally, they could only be removed with alcohol or kerosene. She had neither. The only thing she possessed was a silver ring. Using it, she tried to dig the insects out, but they had burrowed deep into her skin. Fear took hold of her. If the infection spread, she might lose her hand. At the same time, the skin on her upper back, burned during the crash, began to peel away. Blood seeped from the wounds. There was nothing she could do. No medicine, no bandages, so she kept moving. Eventually, she realized walking beside the river was draining what little strength she had left. Instead, she made a dangerous choice. She stepped into the water. Letting the current take her, Julianne floated downstream. For hours, she drifted. At one point, she thought she saw the roof of a house. She even heard a rooster crow. But it wasn't real. It was exhaustion. Hallucinations. When night fell, she pulled herself out of the river to rest. At dawn, she returned to the water. For days, this became her routine. Dangerous, cold, exhausting. One day, as she rested on the riverbank, a large female alligator approached her, ready to attack. But her knowledge saved her. She knew this type of alligator rarely attacks in the water. Calmly, she slipped back into the river and allowed the current to carry her away. Day after day, the cold water and constant hunger drained her strength. She tried to catch frogs, but her body was too weak. Walking along the riverbank, she began to see deer and other wildlife. It was a bad sign. Animals like these do not live near people. By the 10th day, her spirit was nearly gone. Fear filled her thoughts. She truly believed she might die in the jungle. Another day passed. As the sun set and darkness returned, she dragged herself onto a sandy bank to rest. And then she saw it. A large boat, standing silently in the water. At first, she thought it was another illusion. She rubbed her eyes, looked again. It was still there. She checked again, and again. The boat did not disappear. With shaking arms and legs, Julianne swam closer. When her hands finally touched the wood, she knew it was real. Beside the boat, she noticed a narrow path leading upward. Gathering the last strength left in her body, Julianne prepared to climb. Summoning what little strength she had left, Julianne climbed the narrow path. At the top, she found a small hut. She looked inside. There was no one there. The hut was empty of people, but not of supplies. Inside, she found petrol. Carefully, Julianne poured a small amount onto her injured hand. She hoped the burning would force the maggots out. The pain was immediate, unbearable. Trying to escape the burning sensation, the maggots burrowed deeper into her flesh. Then, slowly, one by one, they began to emerge. She counted them. 30 maggots. Exhausted, Julianne decided to wait. If anyone came, this hut was her best chance. Night fell. Morning came. No one arrived. Her body was finished. She had no strength left to continue, so she stayed there, sitting in silence, waiting. As evening approached, something changed. She heard voices. Human voices. At first, she thought her mind was playing tricks on her again, but then she saw them. 3 people stepping out of the jungle. When they noticed her, they stopped in shock. A young white girl, her eyes swollen, her covered in wounds, dressed in torn clothing. To them, she didn't look real. In the Amazon, stories are passed down about spirits and creatures of the river and forest. Legends like the Yakumama, the mother of water. All through her journey, Julianne had held on to the hope that her mother might still be alive. Letting go of that hope was devastating. Yet, in that same moment, a miracle had occurred. These three people were there by chance. They had stopped at the hut only because heavy rain had forced them to rest. They gave Julianne clean clothes. They fed her roasted flour. They cleaned her wounds and removed the remaining maggots. Soon, two more people arrived. The next day, they took Julianne to a nearby village. At first, the villagers were frightened. Her eyes were bloodshot from burst vessels, glowing red against her pale face. But they helped her. Her wounds were cleaned and disinfected. From there, she was flown to Kocha, where doctors could finally treat her properly. After several days of recovery, Julianne returned home. She had survived 11 days alone in the Amazon jungle. 11 days of injuries, hunger, fear, and relentless willpower. Her story stunned the world. A 17-year-old girl, falling from 10,000 feet, surviving 11 days in one of the most dangerous jungles on Earth. It was a story of courage, of knowledge, of an unbreakable will to live. Julianne left the jungle, but the jungle never truly left her. She went on to study biology at the University of Kiel, following in her mother's footsteps. She became a respected zoologist. After her father passed away in the year 2000, Julianne took over as director of the Panguana Research Station. She continued the work her parents had begun, protecting the Amazon and its wildlife. As of 2025, Julianne Koepke is 71 years old. She is still alive. In a later interview, she revealed that the trauma stayed with her for many years. Even long after her survival, the memories returned in nightmares. Some stories never truly end. Even after surviving, one question never left Julianne's mind. Why me? Why did I survive when so many others did not? There may never be a single answer, but perhaps it lies in who she was, in her courage, her determination, and the knowledge her parents had given her. When investigators later reached the crash site, they uncovered something heartbreaking. 14 other passengers had survived the initial impact. They were alive after the plane went down, but they waited. And without rescue, they did not survive. Julianne did something different. She remembered everything her parents had taught her. She trusted what she knew. She moved forward, even when fear and pain tried to stop her. She did not wait. She fought for her life, step by step, until the very end. And perhaps that is what made the difference. There is a lesson in her story. When everything seems lost, when the situation feels impossible, giving up is the one choice we can never afford. Julianne's survival reminds us that even in the darkest moments, the human spirit can endure. If a 17-year-old girl could survive 11 days alone in the Amazon jungle, against hunger, injury, and despair, then we too can face the challenges in our own lives. Thank you for watching.